Welcome all, it's Russ. And in this video, we're going to talk about our main function. Now, in all the examples I've been drawing so far, I haven't had a main function because I'm just trying to write as simple an example as I can. But as your programs get more complex, you're going to find that it's really important to organize your code. And you don't want to have a whole bunch of code just kind of floating around, maybe doing something, maybe not doing something. And so it's good programming practice, and in fact it's required by the style guide in this class for every program to have a main function. And for the whole body of that program, not all the functions that it calls, but the main body of the program itself to be contained within a main function. So let's take a look at this. Let's imagine that we've got various steps that we're going to perform. Def, do, I don't know, do init, I don't know. We're going to initialize our program, and it's going to have a whole bunch of code in here. And it's going to do like, one tick of our simulation. And that'll have some stuff, and it'll have, utility functions and all sorts of things. A good program is generally broken up into a whole bunch of different pieces of code. But we also need something that kind of represents the whole function or the whole program as itself. And so we're also going to have in here def main. Now def main is going to contain the basic steps of the function of the code. So it's going to call the initialization function. And then it might call the tick function a whole bunch of times, and maybe it calls other things. But this is what we think of as the program itself. The very first thing that the program does is it starts running the main function. The very last thing it does is that the main function ends. Everything else is called from main. All right, so if we just write a Python file like this and declare a whole bunch of functions, what's going to happen? Well, it turns out nothing. Because remember, in Python, it doesn't automatically look for a main function. It's just simply going to go through, see a whole bunch of function declarations, and say, okay, cool, I'm ready to run. And there's nothing. Your program will start, and then it will instantly end, having accomplished nothing. So you need to call main. The simplest way to do this, but not actually the correct way, but I'm going to show it first, is that you can simply say at the bottom of your code, main. So it declares all these functions, it gets them all ready to run, and then finally it says, let's actually run it. This will work until your code gets a little bit more complex. Instead, what I'm going to ask you to write, I'm going to need to move to the next column because I'm out of space here. This is going to be a very standard block of code I want you to write every time you're creating a new program. If double underscore name double underscore equals double equals the string double underscore main double underscore, then call main. When you run your program, this condition will be true, and so it will call main. Why do I have you do the if statement? Well, to explain that, I need to talk a little bit more about how imports work and how you're going to design a library and how you're going to unit test it separate from your program, which is all topics for later in the semester. So I'd like you to just get into a habit. Every time you're writing a program, these should be the last two lines of your file. Now, I emphasize the word program because sometimes what I'm going to ask you to do is not implement a complete program, but to implement some functions. So if I say, write a program that will do all the work, end here. But what if instead I say, write a program which will print out your arguments? Def print me x and y. And I say, just give me a function that will called print me, which will print out two arguments. Print x, print y. Now this is not a complete function, complete program. Instead, what's going to happen is that there will be Rust code in a test case, which I will have my own function, my own main function. And what I will do is I will call print me. So if Rust implements the whole program as such, you don't need this. But if you write the program as such, if the program if the specification says write a program named ABC123, then you should have ABC123.py, and it should have this at the bottom. If I say in a file ABC123, create a function called print me, then you don't need a main function for it. Right. I'm sure that there's going to be confusion on this, but I'm not exactly sure how to clarify without belaboring the point. So I'm going to end the video here, and I'll be happy to answer questions as you're working on projects. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.